when I'm in that thing, I'm 100% in that thing. You know what I mean? Like when I'm like in football, it's 100% football. When I'm in, school, 100% school. And obviously when I'm working, it's 100% work all the time. Just kind of block off those distractions from those other things and just focus on that one thing 100% in the moment. And I think that's a lot of people just are, get into that one thing and then get distracted and, can only think about work or sports or school. And their minds are just constantly racing. And I've got really good at focusing on, different parts of my life. You know what I mean? I got really good at, focusing on football when it was football, really got good at focusing on school when it was school time, and really got, good at focusing on work when it was work time, just kind of, shutting off those different parts of my brain when it's time to, lock in for a, certain activity or whatever you're doing.
Welcome to the show. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for listening. Looking forward to sharing this crazy story of this 20-year-old who's led a packed life. We got Caleb Hyman on the show. At only 20, he's done things that most people never do in their lives. And he's going to talk about how to balance it all: school, four sports, work, life, family. How do you balance it all with focus? We're going to get into that. We're going to get into his method for processing stress and being productive, not busy, productive. And we're going to talk about managing momentum through engagement, how to focus and push. Here we go. Welcome to the show and welcome to the Edge of Excellence. Well, Caleb, thank you for making it inside, away from all those bugs and all that heat up there in Wisconsin, to share some of your wisdom with us. Welcome to the Edge of Excellence.
Yeah, thank you very much, Matt. Happy to be on.
Well, we're happy to have you on, and we're going to get into it. You got an interesting history. First of all, I never know how old people are. And then you put, I'm 20 years old, which I think is absolutely crazy. You're 20 years old. You're a four-sport athlete: football, baseball, wrestling, and track, captain of two of those teams, football and wrestling, and then promoted three times, top producer for 3 years in your first professional venture. And we're going to get into that because that sounds crazy. At 20 years old, you've done all that stuff. Four sports. Oh, sports in college too. Can't forget about that. Playing football in college, promoted and kicking butt. But before we do, I got to ask you what I ask everybody. What is your definition of excellence?
Yeah, for sure. So I would say my personal definition of excellence would just be really like setting a goal and then, you know, pushing yourself past that goal. I feel like a lot now, like, people like set their goals and, maybe they stop right before it or they stop like right at their goal and they're just like, they're happy with that. I hit my goal or, I'm really close to my goal. I'm really happy with that. But I think personally, like excellence is, setting a goal and then seeing how far past you can get past that goal. I would say that's personally my definition of excellence.
So it's going beyond what you wanted, going beyond what you thought you could do, going beyond what you think was possible. There's when you hit excellence.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Well, we're not going to have to go back too far today. I have definitely quite a few pieces of clothing older than you, including like every part of it: shoes, belts, maybe not socks and underwear. I hope I don't, but I definitely have a lot of shirts older than you. I can
Mhm.
think of some of them. Like I've got one, Paul Simon's concert in the park, 1999. Older
Okay.
than
Yep.
you, older
Mhm.
than you. They made a CD out of it. But we're gonna go sort of far back because you played all these sports and then you played football at the University of Wisconsin lacrosse. A lot of people want to go to school and do a sport, which you've done it. At the same time, and this is kind of cool, you just got a summer job painting houses, happened to be for College Works, and you were a painter. And then you got promoted to a manager and you generated like, I think 160 grand, almost 150, 60 grand as a
Yeah.
manager. And then you come in as a district manager, still in school. I mean, a lot of district managers are not in school, still in school. And this is only your first year, and you beat everybody. There's three of you vying for number one, and they're big numbers. Like 10x what you did last year, 1.5
Mhm.
something million, and all that football, school, all this work, all this success. And you got a bunch of friends and you're a super cool guy. So we got to figure out, how do people follow that path and how do you get to do everything? You're not an or guy. Do you know what
No,
do you know what the tyranny of or is?
no, I'm not sure. No.
The tyranny of or is forcing choices. I can do this or I can do that. I can play football or I can get good grades. I can work a job or succeed in football and get grades. That's the tyranny of or. You're an and guy. You want it all. I'm going to
Yeah.
play football and I'm going to succeed and I'm going to have great friendships and I'm going to be a great son and I'm going to respect my family values and I'm going to create my legacy and I'm still going to like be super fun and not out of control, embarrassing my family. You've done it all. How did this happen? What was going on in high school? I know you're playing all these sports. All 4 years you played all these sports?
Yeah, yep, all 4 years, yep. So, basically, I mean, what happened in high school for me is, I was always a hard worker, right? Always like, get that excellence, push myself as much as I can. Really with those 4 sports, those really, push me all throughout, my entire life, not even through high school, but yeah, just sports have really been for me in my entire life, pushing me hard. But really, in high school, yeah, you look at it now, and right now I'm obviously a district manager, and I went through all of this. I'm going through all this stuff that I am right now. But I started off as a quick trip worker in high school, really not doing much there. But yeah, I mean that's kind of my experience through high school is just really working hard and seeing what I can do and how I can kind of set myself apart from everybody else.
Okay, so quick trip. We got people down in Melbourne, Australia that listen.
Yeah.
Shout out to Melbourne, Australia. We got people in California. Not everybody knows what Quick Trip is, but if you're from Wisconsin or you're from Minnesota or you're from Iowa, maybe Indiana, maybe Illinois, maybe Michigan, Quick Trip is like it's like a place to be and a place to go. But what is Quick Trip? Because people don't know, and it's just crazy that
Yeah.
everybody loves Quick Trip so much. What is it?
Yeah, it's just a gas station.
It's a gas station.
Yeah.
And you hear people that, I mean, I hear so many people that go to Quick Trip to get their food and they talk about how good the food is. It's a gas station. So you worked there for how many years?
Yeah, I worked there for 4 years.
So you
I
were,
was working there throughout my entire high school. I was working there.
how
So
many hours a week were you working at Quick Trip?
well, because of sports, I could only really work part-time. I was only really like working like on the weekends because, during the week I had, football practice every single night, going to that wrestling practice, track practice, all of that, good stuff. So it was really just a part-time job for me, and really like sports was kind of my full-time thing.
And then you also
Um,
had school. So you had the
yeah.
part-time job of
Also,
Quick Trip, the
yep.
full-time job of school, the
Mhm.
part-time job of sports. And why do you think people love Quick Trip so much? Just shout out to Quick Trip. They got raising fans. What is it?
Yeah. It's really, you can get everything in one, right? You can get your gas, you can get your groceries, you can get your food. Like there's a ton of stuff, like even like there's a bunch of stuff for cars in there as well. Like, you can get all your oil in there, you can get like everything.
People
So
love it because it's a quick trip. And I'm telling you that I hear that the food is good. So I am going to go to a quick trip and I'm going to eat some food from Quick Trip. So it's interesting that, did you have friends in high school that maybe played the sports but didn't have the job, or maybe had the job and didn't play the sports because they didn't think they had enough time, or their parents told them they didn't have enough time?
oh yeah, absolutely. I had friends who did both. Like I had friends who only did sports, and that was really their only thing. They never really had a job. All throughout high school, parents just kind of supported them that way, and they just kind of just full sports, just full grinding. Obviously, the complete opposite. I had some buddies who I grew up playing sports with, and then they hit high school, and they're like, "Yeah, I don't have time for sports. I'm just gonna go work." And I was like, Why not just do both? You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
because
Why
you're
not?"
you're 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 an and guy, not an or guy. Why do you think that certain people listening today want to be the person that can do it all? Why do some people do it successfully and some people believe it's a lot of parents think it's impossible?
People really get just like focusing on one thing, and I think really stressed about this one thing, and that's all that's on their mind is stress about this one thing. And you got to think like, you know once you're doing like how I kind of manage it when I was in football, or when I was doing football in school, is like, when I'm in that thing, I'm 100% in that thing. You know what I mean? Like in football, it's 100% football. When I'm in, school, 100% school. And obviously when I'm working, it's 100% work all the time. Just kind of block off those distractions from those other things and just focus on that one thing 100% in the moment. And I think that's a lot of people just are, get into that one thing and then get distracted and, can only think about work or sports or school. And their minds are just constantly racing. And I've got really good at focusing on, different parts of my life. You know what I mean? I got really good at, focusing on football when it was football, really got good at focusing on school when it was school time, and really got, good at focusing on work when it was work time, just kind of, shutting off those different parts of my brain when it's time to, lock in for a, certain activity or whatever you're doing.
So the key to your success, you mentioned two things. Quit stressing out about shit.
Yeah.
So do you meditate?
I don't meditate, but like the thing is like with me is like, if I get super stressed, I get super amped up. I don't know if think this is a form of meditation or not. I kind of call it that, but kind of just like sit down by myself and I guess I just kind of I guess maybe a little bit of meditation, take a couple of deep breaths and I kind of think about what the stress is and something that I always use is, with stress is like, is this something that I can prevent? Okay, if there's something that I can prevent, then I'm going to go do that thing. Okay, this is not something that I can prevent. Okay, then why stress about it? Because it's not something that I can prevent. If it's a learning opportunity, why stress about it? I can learn from it and make it better for the next time. You know what I mean? So that's how, I really deal with stress. And that's kind of my form of meditation is just kind of, thinking through that stress and thinking like, what can I do to make myself less stressed and kind of prepare myself better for the future?
Yeah, a lot of the busy, or let's say the unproductive. So first of all, there's a lot of unproductive, and maybe they're busy. And then there's people that are unproductive and unbusy, but they think they're busy, or they think they're working, or they think
Mhm.
they know they're not productive because things aren't getting done, and they can't do sports and do work and go to school. Something's not going to fly. They can't be married and be successful and work in the community, because what I'm getting out of this is they don't stop and process. So they let it
Mhm.
go, let it go. And yeah, meditation causes you sit down and you focus on things. You sit down and you clear out the noise. Well, that's what you're doing. How to get through stress, process it,
Mhm.
bond, focus on what you control. So you got
Exactly.
few lessons there. How to deal with stress. You got to stop. You got to go sit under a
Mhm.
tree. You got to do some form of thinking, processing. What's stressing me out? Do I control it? What's the worst outcome? What's the best outcome? What do I control? And then focus on what you're doing. And then the meditation is when worried about sports. Well, I'm working. No, 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 no. Now I'm working. Let's focus on work. That's meditation teaches you how to do that. So you process stress, move on, and then you're present and focused in what you do. And that was the key to being productive, to being successful,
Mhm.
because you didn't like play football, junior varsity, and were on the bench while you got C's
Mhm.
and never and worked 4 hours a week. You were crushing it in the sports and crushing it in the school and crushing it in the work, and you're still crushing it in the sports and crushing it in the school. And anyone listening can do that. You can stop and think about it. You're spending so much time freaking out about shit instead of dealing with it. So you
Yeah.
just deal with your shit. And who'd you learn all this from?
Yeah, honestly, well, Matt, I would actually say like we would have our one-page meetings, and I actually remember talking about, that in our, one-page meeting, and that kind of really helped me, reduce that stress and kind of, help me realize that stress is something that you can kind of deal with and think through. But I guess I've always kind of had that ever since being in sports. I guess I didn't really know how to define it till, recently. But it's what I did in sports as well. I just kind of, sitting there like, yeah, it's like a big moment. Say it's like a big moment in a football game, and I'm super stressed. My legs feel like they're noodles. And, I sit there and I take a deep breath and I'd be like, okay, what's there to be stressed about? I know like I'm just gonna go out there and kick the guy's ass like right in front of me. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
that's kind of,
that's a good metaphor for life. Like whatever's
yeah.
stressing you out
Mhm.
is the whole field of things. Deal with the thing facing you right now on the other side, and then you take lead
Yep.
bites, right? I do love those one-page plans. And I was thinking you were going to say your parents. Shout out to your parents. What are your parents' names?
Yeah. Yeah. My parents do actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
What are their names?
Yeah. Rachel and Aaron.
Rachel and Aaron. Well, shout out to Rachel and Aaron because they must have been doing something there in those sports in the sports era to get you to take those deep breaths, to get you to
Oh yeah.
calm down. Not to mention all the driving. Not to mention all the. Can you imagine that?
Oh yeah.
You forgot baseball. Four sports. I mean,
Oh yep.
they
Baseball. Yep.
they had
Hmm.
to do a lot of driving, and they raised a good kid. And so the other thing is, like, I would think that you would be a loner, right? Because I mean, you got what
Hmm.
is it, nearly 40 hours of school, and then you
Yeah.
got another 20 hours of sports, and you got another 20 hours of work, and there's 80 hours a week. How do you have time for anything else? How did you in high school mix in your social life and make sure that you were decompressing and dealing with stresses and processing with your social friends?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I think, a big thing that I did to, make sure that I'm like, still had time to, hang out with my friends and do that is, it's all about just like for me, it was kind of like, planning times ahead of time, be like, okay, so maybe maybe instead of doing this, I can go hang out with my buddies. Like this takes priority right now. Just kind of finding what takes priority in the moment, I think was a huge thing for me, was just, really, really, really just like prioritizing the things that I knew, truly mattered in the moment. Maybe this like one day of work, like maybe like a couple hours of work can be missed to go out and hang out with my friends because a lot of people, either like, overwork themselves, over like do all that. It's like you got to have time to, go out and hang out with your friends, do fun things with your buddies. Otherwise, it just gets too much. And, like not even like the best people can, deal with stress if there's not somebody else there to kind of, talk to and kind of like, go out and have fun with, you know what I mean?
It's like changing your oil. You don't go
Yeah.
change your oil, your car is going to keep running for a while. You might be doing some damage to it. It might seize up on you eventually, which did happen to me with my car when I was an intern. And by the way, if your car breaks down that you paid $400 for, you can't just leave it on the side of the road and take the license plate because they have those VIN numbers and they figure out where you live, which did
Hmm.
also happen to me. It's a maintenance thing. And there's studies, and my friend Scott, he works 50 minutes on, 10 minutes off, 50 minutes. And that's what all the studies say, 50 on, 10 off, 50 on, 10 off. I don't do that. I just sit here for hours. And then he'll do a lap. But I feel it. Like if I don't go do the exercise part, like
Hmm.
I'm feeling it right now. I've been working too hard. We just had a retreat, the 14-hour days. I start to feel it. And emotionally I feel it. I need to get
Hmm.
out there. I need to see the turkey vultures. I love the turkey vultures that just hide while I'm mountain bike. I need the lizards. I need the rattlesnakes. I need the non-rattlesnakes, especially even more than the rattlesnakes. I just need the air and I need the rhythm. I got to take a break. If and we do it, right? We do 30 days in a row and stuff like that. And Sean and I
Hmm.
talk about it like in the middle, the 17th day. Like
Yeah.
we go too long. So you need a break. You need to schedule time because just like an oil change, it makes you last longer. Just like an oil change, your car works a little better. So you actually get more done by taking a little break. All
Oh
right.
yeah.
Well, that's a good lesson on handling stress, processing stress, balancing all this stuff. So you went to college and now you're playing football in college
Yep.
and you did the college works thing. And there's a lot of college works people that listen to this, but there's a lot of people that aren't in college works that listen to this too. So we
Mhm.
can talk in terms of just you were working really hard, you were doing different things. Why did you choose something like College Works, or we could say, I mean, I like Vector Marketing. They don't provide enough training though at Vector Marketing, so I don't think I
Mhm.
can really endorse them anymore after seeing my daughter's friends go through. They kind of throw them to the wolves, but it's still
Mhm.
a good experience to be
Oh
thrown to
yeah.
the wolves. I like
Mhm.
the canning places in Alaska. Sounds crazy, and the fishing boats in Alaska. I'm like, I like all the hard stuff. Why did you pick this College Works one?
Yeah, I mean, personally for me, it was kind of like a no-brainer for me. So, as I'm sure, like, we already kind of discussed, is I started off as a painter, right? I actually remember exactly where I was when I was asked to be a painter, just because, when you go through this, you kind of think about that. It's actually in my English class, my senior year. One of my buddies reached out to me. He was like, I'm running a painting business this summer. What do you think? And, my set plan for the summer was to work at QuikTrip. And I was like, I'm sick of working there right now. I kind of want a little change of pace. So
Mm.
I decided to go do that. And I really just saw the experience that he was having, and kind of just like what he was able to do with this experience. And, I've always wanted to run my own business, in my future. My dad runs his own business. I want to run my own business. So I kind of was like, oh yeah, of course, like, why not just give it a shot, give it a shot, take this leap of faith kind of and see where it kind of takes me. And, I haven't looked back since. I had a really good experience painting under my friend, right? And kind of took that leap of faith into becoming a branch manager. Knew it was going to be a lot of responsibility to take on. I decided to do it anyways, and I had a great time doing it. I mean, it's exactly what I wanted to do. Really, my entire life is sell jobs and book jobs and go out there producing and give homeowners a great quality service. And then obviously, going from that branch manager to now a district manager, that was a huge leap for me too. And it's funny because I was actually going to come back as a branch manager again. I was going to come back as an executive manager and come back and do the whole thing again like that I did last summer. And then I was like right in the middle of my exec meeting, and Jack asked me if he thought I would might want to be a district manager, and I was, yeah, I don't know. But then I talked to my dad, and my dad, running his own business, said, look, dude, if you want to run your own business one day, this is what you got to do. You got to, be a district manager, and you got to go, take that opportunity and kind of run with it. And I haven't regretted a single thing. It's been an amazing experience, and wouldn't change it looking back at all. So,
Who was the manager that you worked for as a painter?
yeah, I worked under Seamus Scanlon, and it's actually funny
Oh,
because Seamus was actually $1 million DM too. So,
oh yeah. Oh, so I didn't know that.
uh-huh.
I knew you were a painter. I didn't know it was Seamus. Shout out to Seamus
Yep.
and Aaron. Thank you, Aaron
Yeah.
Hyman. Thank you so much. Because it goes both ways. A number one enemy is mom. Oh, you're working so hard. Why are you working so hard? Maybe you shouldn't do this because they need to learn how to work hard. Get away from your kids, please. My parents, I think I've told you this, a lot of parents, including me, parents out of fear. It's going to hurt them, so I'm going to protect them. And,
Mhm.
there's a lot of stuff I've done in my life over fear. But your dad, Aaron, gotta
Mhm.
love Aaron, knows what's
Yeah.
right for his boy. Go out and do the harder thing. And then you just crushed it. Probably crushed
Mhm.
it way more than you imagined, right?
Oh, yeah, it's like I went out there and I had high expectations myself. I always have high expectations for myself, but going out here, I totally exceeded what even I thought I'd do, and it's just a really cool thing for me to see too. Is like because I feel like a lot of people kind of look at it like that, being like, I don't know if I'm going to succeed. I don't know if like I'm going to do great in this, and then they just stop right there and they're just like, no, I don't want to do it, right? Because it's going to be too hard. It's going to be something that it's going to take too much out of me. And I look at something like that and I'll be like, okay, it's going to take a lot out of me. It's going to be really hard. Okay, this is going to be a great learning experience. Like I'm going to take this on and see where this takes me.
Well, that's what you've been talking about. When you're stressing, stop, process. What do you control? Work on what do you control? Move on and focus. When you're really, really working hard, sit down, figure out what you control, balance things out, make a plan, stay focused on what you're doing. And when you set a goal, maybe go past the goal. And yeah, I didn't think you'd do as well either. I mean, honestly, dude, nobody does these big numbers. I don't know how many people have
Mhm.
done
Yeah.
1.5 million out of all the district managers we've ever had. I mean, what is it, four?
Mhm. Yeah, not very many, I don't think.
Yeah, I think it's four or five that have ever done 1.5 million. And I don't know that they've done it in their first year. So
Mhm.
that's the other unique thing. You might be the first. Well, there's both of you. You and Cameron might both be the
Mhm.
first to do that much. We got to find out. We have records that we can pull. So
Yeah.
congratulations on that. And thank you. And what a great decision your parents made. Thank you, Rachel and Aaron, because now all the people that you got to go support get to experience the Caleb Hyman experience, and
Yeah.
they're learning how to manage their stress, and they're learning how to focus, and they're learning how to achieve in all different areas because you're spreading that out. Did you know, like in high school, did you already know that you needed to separate yourself to be able to follow kind of the path that you choose, and that if you want to make all the choices in your life, you're going to have to kind of be, I don't want to say better than the others because people hate when I think that I'm better than other people, but it's better, more capable, or I have more opportunities that I've created for myself. Did you know? Were you doing that consciously?
100%. And that kind of goes back to me and my sports, right? So again, like you'll ask my parents, ask my brother, sister, friends, like, sports was always like a huge thing where I was just like, I need to push myself to be better than the next person. There was always people like complaining, like, oh, why are you getting more playing time than me? Why am I on the bench while you're on the field? Why do you get this like this and I don't get it? Okay, I'm like, yeah, because I work my ass off. You know what I mean? And that was something that I was always like subconsciously doing. Like, you know, go in and I would, work out in the morning, then maybe, go do, cardio at night. Like I would go run on the field and, do exercises, like just doing whatever I can. And it was mainly in football. Obviously, football is my main sport, doing it in college too. But it was like, yeah, mainly with football, it's just like whatever I can do to set myself apart, I'm gonna do that. Okay, like no matter what it is. That's kind of, that was my mentality going into, sports, especially football, and now going into work, school, and
Did your parents play sports? Were they big athletes?
yeah, my dad actually. Yeah, my dad actually went to college too. He played football in college too. Unfortunately, he got sick his freshman year, so he couldn't play that much. But he did get a scholarship to play football in college. And my mom did softball as well. So
Wow.
yeah.
Okay. Both of them played in college?
No, not in college. My mom didn't play in college, but
Do you have? How many siblings do you have?
yeah, I have a younger brother and sister.
And are they following your path?
I'd like to say they're following in my path. My brother's actually he's going in and he's actually going down the path of acting, and he's doing really really good right now. He actually thinking about going to college here, maybe in California, acting school in California. So that's going to be really cool. Maybe he'll see you there, Matt. But then my sister, she's a freshman in high school right now, and she's already on varsity softball, starting varsity softball. So it's
About
really cool to
jobs.
see.
What about jobs? Do they have
Yeah.
jobs?
Well, my sister is too young to have a job right now.
Oh,
So she doesn't have a job, but my brother is actually following my footsteps. He's working at QuikTrip right now as well.
all
So
right.
yeah.
And he's pre-hired. We don't even need to interview him. Pre-hired. But anybody raised by Rachel and Aaron is pre-hired at College Works.
Mhm.
So just because you did the College Works thing, and there's people listening from College Works, what tips would you have? It's summertime. This is going to come out July 7th. Hopefully the first tip is don't take the entire week off, because you only have 13 weeks to produce. 4th of July is a day, not a week. What's a big tip you got for people listening that, it's that time, the first profit checks are coming, but maybe they haven't
Yeah.
got one yet?
Mhm. Yeah, I would say don't get complacent, especially if you start, having those, checks getting, coming in. Don't get complacent with what you're doing. Stay on the gas pedal, keep moving forward because, if you stop, you're going to be, every single hour that you don't work or your painters don't work is another hour that you're going to be producing in, later in the summer, even going into the school year, right? So, keep your gas on the pedal, don't slow down, because if you slow down right now, you're going to regret it and you're going to be kicking yourself later if you slow down right now. And that's the same with sales, right? Same with sales. It's like if you slow down, later in the summer, like next year or later in the year, you're going to be kicking yourself, being like, man, maybe instead of sitting on my couch and watching TV, I could have been out there, getting leads, going, knocking on doors, and you know setting myself apart and getting as much as I possibly can out of this experience.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, you need to take breaks,
Absolutely.
and you need to get organized and more efficient. But every time you skip doing something important, it usually leads to a problem that takes way more time. And if you stop kind of managing things, I like how you say it, you're going to be managing things into the school year. That's a good
Yep.
tip. Anything you want to share that you haven't shared that people just need to know? Well, I have a question. I need to know.
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe my memory's not serving me, but I've met with you once a month for this entire year, and you
Mhm.
made a strategic plan for your life, and you tracked yourself on your progress to your action items and your goals and your focus. But I don't know what you want to do for a living. And maybe it's not on that plan. What do you want to do when you graduate from college and go into the world?
Mhm. Yeah, actually, something really cool, and I've been talking to my dad about a lot about this, but really thinking about kind of following in the family business, whether it be so my dad, I mean, Backwoods Log Homes, quick shout
Oh
out
yeah,
there,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I
Backwoods
remember.
Log Homes. But yeah, like I kind of want to follow in those footsteps. And I don't know if it's necessarily, building log homes or building log shells like he does, or maybe going into like the restoration, part of it where, instead I'm like fixing up log homes and or fixing up homes in general, something like that. But I want to follow in his footsteps either way, either something to do with log homes. And I think that's, just something that I've always wanted to do even since I was, a little kid. I've always like, saw my dad running his own business and thought that that's just the coolest thing in the world, right? Like growing up watching your dad run his own business. And I guess I that's always something that I've wanted to do. So that's definitely what I want to do after I'm done with college works, after I'm done with college. I want to go out and start my own business. So yeah.
What do you think the best day in your dad's life was so far in his entire life? If you were gonna guess, what would it be?
Man, that's tough. I mean, there's, getting married,
There's getting
kids
married. That's a pretty good day. Getting married. What else? What else?
getting married, kids being born, but
It's being born. I mean, he got
yeah.
to experience that a few times. That's pretty good. And then he's got both boy and girl, so he got
Mhm.
the double delight.
Yeah, but I would honestly say, I mean, I can't speak for myself, but I don't know, I think it's pretty special, like especially at least for me as a son, it's pretty special for me, like kind of, going in and wanting to take over that business and wanting to kind of follow in his footsteps. I think like I don't know, obviously I'm not a dad, I can't speak for him, but I think it's a pretty proud moment right there. And no, I
Yeah.
think I would be pretty proud of it. Yeah.
Yeah, he hasn't had his best day yet because I have the
Mhm.
kids, I have the
Mhm.
marriage, but I
Mhm.
have something he doesn't have. My son
Mhm.
came and worked with me. That
Yep.
will be his best. That is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. I love it. And I love it because he's kicking ass and everybody knows he's kicking ass, but that is so cool. I'm so stoked for Aaron. And you know what? We should be stoked for Aaron. Throw some stuff back at him for all this impact he's had on all these kids by telling you that you should take that challenge. What? So you haven't lived that long, but a lot of the like I think about what are the pivot points. I did a podcast with this guy Cameron Harold yesterday, and we're talking, and he did this thing called College Pro. He didn't do
Yep.
College Works. He did the one up in Canada, College Pro. He actually hired Kimball Musk was one of his interns, Elon Musk's brother,
Oh, seriously though.
and Kimball's son was one of our interns in California like years ago, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Came back around. But we were talking about pivotal points. And I think that we both think that the most pivotal thing we ever did was doing this internship. And you got to think,
Mhm.
okay, maybe it was getting married. No, because I don't think I would have gotten married to Jill if I hadn't done this internship, because that kind
Mhm.
of brought us back together and we knew each other all our lives. And you think maybe it was moving to a certain place. It probably would have worked out, but maybe it was moving to California because that's where I found the job. So look back in your long, long, long life, not even as long as my Paul Simon concert in the park t-shirt, which I should have gotten. I can go get it right now and put it on.
Yeah.
What's a big sacrifice that you made that at the time you're like, screw this, I don't want to do this, I want to do the other thing, but you did it, you made the sacrifice and it changed your life for the positive and you're so glad you did that.
Yeah, I would say taking that leap into being a branch manager and kind of having to sacrifice maybe, some time with my friends, yeah, freshman year going out to the bars and having a good time with them. And I think that was a huge sacrifice that I had to make. And I had to sit there for a while. And also, when I was a branch manager, I wasn't doing it in my college town. I was actually doing it in my hometown, having to drive almost 3 hours home every single weekend. So I think that was a huge sacrifice that I kind of had to make. Would be like, yeah, I'm never going to be here on the weekends. I'm never going to, or I'm not never going to. I'm not going to be able to hang out with my friends as much. Living with my roommates, but on that, not much I'm gonna be able to. But still, to this day, it's like one of the best decisions that I've ever made in my entire life. Right? It's a sacrifice in the moment that is insanely tough. But looking back at it, I wouldn't have changed a single thing that I did. So
It's nice to
yeah.
not have regrets when you live your values all the time, which I know you pretty well, Caleb.
Hmm.
You're one of those people that like I hope somebody one day that wants to do business with you listens to me say this right now. You're one of those people that you're super happy are interacting on the front lines with other people on your behalf, because you know that Caleb will do as good or better at towing the moral line, the values line, the do the right thing line. Caleb will make his own decisions that may cost a lot of money, may create some issues, but he'll make the right decisions and not worry about that. So we're stoked to have you here, Caleb. Thank you so much for making that crucial sacrifice to work your ass off those years ago and continue working with us for as long as we can have you. And then it'll be Aaron and Rachel's turn to take you back, which will be the greatest thing that ever happened to them. But thank you for making time. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. Thank you for coming on The Edge of Excellence today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm, yeah, again, happy to be on.